Well, good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me out there? Let's get this music wrapped up. Good morning. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Van by the river. So, good morning, everybody. Let me just double check that the stream is looking good. I forgot to do that. And so, thanks again for my special guest, Alan, being here with us this morning. And as usual, everything that you hear here from Alan and I is not financial advice, it's just our observation on the markets. And if you end up taking trades blindly based on things that you hear here, you're going to end up losing all your money and living in a van by the river. Now, with that said, good morning, Alan. How are things for you? How was your trip?
Good evening. Yeah, good. Thanks, Brandon. Safely back in Dalian after a week in Shanghai. So we couldn't get that stream together to be live from Shanghai for a change, but they're good to be back in Dalian. It's absolutely freezing here now as well. So so lovely.
Well, so you had I had a cold front come through last night that created a lot of havoc here too. It was a rather windy event. So, so I wanted to pull up the live stream, make sure that we were looking good here. And I just now noticed that a bunch of my notes are not in the video. So let me fix this real fast, guys, and then we'll get rolling. Sorry about all the technical glitches. I'm still, oh, it looks, it should be there. All right, we should be good. I don't know why it's not showing up in the video. Let's go to this. All right, so this morning, though, obviously we had a lot of drama about the little bit of sell-off we had. I'll tell you what, I'm going to give some opening comments here, then I'll turn it over to Alan to present his things for what he has to share for us today. He's got some charts and some news, I believe. But the one thing I want to share real briefly is just that, first of all, in the broad scheme of things, this little bit of correction we had is a nothing burger, right? It's really a small event. The people that I see getting the most upset about things are people that have expectations of really big numbers. And so the one thing I want to caution people is for those of us who are out here talking about like these smaller moves, we're probably actively trading, especially on leverage. If you're holding spot and you're just a hodler, this looks great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of a correction. The big thing, obviously, is the change in behavior. This kind of rolling series of false breakouts, and then a sell-off significantly under prior breakouts. For example, we had a breakout here and then a second breakout here, and we've still somehow sold off now. We'll see if we close a daily below it or not, behind this peak way over here in April. This is abnormal for price behavior of Bitcoin. So if you're actively trading, these are things to take note of. If you're a hodler, I mean, just zoom out, and this is what the chart looks. It looks beautiful. So no need to stress too much about it if you're a hodler. This is really for people that are active traders. But people I see getting the most upset are the people that maybe have. And I don't know. I'm starting to sense that there are maybe people out there, and I hope our viewers are not in this camp. But there are people that maybe have made choices that maybe they've purchased things or they're living on some type of loan or something, and the price of Bitcoin has to go parabolic by the end of this year, or something bad might happen. I don't know maybe where that's coming from, but again, if you're just hodling, to me this looks great. This is just normal price fluctuations in a normal market. The other thing, Link is the other one I wanted to highlight here this morning. I did have an active trade on Link. I did highlight that I thought Litecoin would move first, and sure enough, Litecoin made a huge move. Waiting for Litecoin to reset. I'm pretty much completely out of it now after getting hit, taking profit into these two resistance levels, and then the rest of it got taken out here on a sell-off below 250, below this wick over here. But the next one I'm watching closely myself is Link, and I think Link is poised to make potentially a big run. I think it's an undervalued project. Look at it on a macro here on the longer-term Bitcoin chart. You can see that it's starting to try to break out. You see it's technically in a long-term uptrend and had this huge couple of big moves. So we're looking to see what happens. One of these huge moves would be fantastic versus Bitcoin, but nonetheless, it's in an uptrend and it's looking like it's wanting to take this midpoint of this uptrend and maybe make a move to the top side of this uptrend. And so that's what I'm banking on kind of right now, is looking for that move, and then we'll see if we can't get any continuation out of that. So those are my initial thoughts. But again, if you're a hodler, here's the line I'd watch. One of these two lines, right? And if you want to maybe trim a little bit if we lose the 50, and then trim a little bit more if we lose the 120, and then buy back, on the other side when they regain those moving averages. If you're in a position where you've got a large portion of your net worth invested in Bitcoin, and you're just concerned that you're over positioned, well, I would say honestly, those are your opportunities to take a little bit of profit if you were to lose those two levels, which would mean that we're losing momentum. You can see what happens every time we lose. Like over here, we didn't lose the 50 until right here, right? And that was a big indicator that we were going down. And then when we ultimately lost the 120, that's when things really, really got hairy really fast. So, if you're a hodler, that's what I'd watch. I'd watch these longer moving averages, and I just would be patiently waiting. And if you see it clearly break down below the 50, then there's a chance to trim a little bit when it tested as resistance, because it's going to. And then if you lose the 120, then you can maybe trim a little bit more. But otherwise, yeah, I think this is not any huge deal. Those are my thoughts. And I'm sure Alan's got some thoughts here on Ethereum. I don't know, Alan, you want to share your charts?
Sure.
And then we're going to get to your. Do you have some stuff to share with your trip with us for later as well? Just asking.
Not right now. I mean, maybe do that next week. But it's
okay. Next week. Very good. So we'll speak more about Alan's trip next week then.
Yeah. The other thing that's changed week to week for everybody is obviously the clocks don't move in China. So it's now approaching 10:30. So it gets even later doing these streams.
Yeah.
On a 13-hour shift to Texas now. So yeah, great fun. So perhaps more. What are you 8 now, isn't it?
It is 8:30 my time, Central Time, US.
Goodness, so 14 hours.
Yeah, we might, we'll talk about adjusting if we need to adjust further. But I'm glad you stayed up with us, stayed up late to have you back. It's been a couple of weeks, so it's good to have you.
Yeah. So obviously looking Bitcoin, we were in this week with this wick, I guess, last time, because we've missed 2 weeks out here. So so you could sort of say Bitcoin's still really, we go up to the all-time high here in April, was just obviously we're back under that at the moment. We're still not broken out yet above that area. So this is like still this giant consolidation. And I saw these sort of doji candles start forming. We actually only got two. We were forming a third one, and then it spiked up at the end of the week. But I've seen before, and it's just a little pattern. It's probably got a technical name, but I've never bothered to look it up. I said it just looked a bit like a TV aerial, one of the old ones on top of a house. But you start seeing these lines of doji candles, and you see it on the 8-hour. And if you go back and look at some of the Ethereum charts, when we got a whole line of these, you may be getting 6 or 7 of them. The thing's just exploded straight out of there. So I was looking at this on Bitcoin and thinking, okay, is this telling me this is about to pop? But so far, again, we've had resistance up above this 65,000 sort of area. And yeah, I mean, we're seeing Ethereum climbing very steadily. But yeah, this is a nice move up, I guess, off the bottom, but it's not the explosive moves at the moment that people keep talking about. It's much steadier. Yep. And when you watch the price action, there's a lot of resistance around here. We're seeing Ethereum get into price discovery, and it keeps finding resistance everywhere. Whether it's just the maturity of these markets now, there's a lot of different players than there was 4 years ago. I don't know, but we're not, at this stage at least, we're not seeing these face-melting double-digit percentage moves on Ethereum. We're seeing those on the smaller projects where we just get these insane pumps. So not too much else I can really say on Bitcoin. Obviously, I'd realized I hadn't cloned my main trend lines up, and lo and behold, it touches the top of these two wicks. Absolutely. Once we came off this one, it was perfect on that next one. Had the same on the lower weekly there.
What gives me pause, Alan, is you've got those two top trend lines, and we keep coming into resistance on those. So I need to see exactly how you drew those trend lines here and try to clone it on one of my other charts. If you zoom
Just
out,
to
that'd be great.
clone. So I've
Yeah,
got my
perfect.
baseline here on the chart, which obviously comes from the
Okay.
bottom and then cloned up. And then I've just cloned them up again off that. Like I hadn't done it and I just put them on a few days ago and thought, oh, I should have had those there because that was a gift there on that.
Right.
Oh,
So
just into resistance. So,
my observation on your chart would be, obviously if we get right now it looks like if I was looking at this and it's a weekly chart currently, but if I was looking at that and those are 12-hour candles, I would say to myself, this is consolidating under resistance, is what it looks like to me.
absolutely.
It's a series of higher lows and then some higher highs here, and it keeps pushing upward. And when it breaks to the upside, it should move pretty big. I mean, that's the reality. So, and when you get these channel breakouts, they can move big and then come back down quick. So that may be, the people that are looking for a parabolic top into the end of the year. I mean, we're all observing for it. I'm not necessarily predicting it, but I'm looking for it.
Yep.
But should we get a nice break of this consolidation area we're getting, that could lead to a somewhat of a blow off top. So I can see that more clearly on your chart than my charts. That's really good.
We're building here. It's quite possible we could see a push down to be the catalyst to then reverse and catapult.
Yeah.
Because we often see that sort of behavior. So let's see. But when we've had these runs, we haven't quite had it here yet, but get a line of these compressing price and then boom out of here is often what I've seen. And I'm no expert trader for years and years. I've just picked up some patterns myself over certainly on Ethereum. If we want to go back to that story, we can go way back to into the back end of last year down here, and if we zoom in, try not to break my chart whilst I'm doing it.
It's
sure
small observation too. I had the same trend lines at one point that you had, and I've abandoned them apparently on some of my charts, and they're super useful. They're definitely working.
If you look down here, this was when I sent everything I had into Ethereum. We got this amazing price compression across these candles where the price wasn't moving, and then, whoa, huge move up, down, straight back down, retest, clattered around in here. And then obviously we know what happened when this eventually finished clattering around. It took off up to 4,000. You can see the expansion, and then these moves just got more and more violent. And then eventually we got that top, we disappear off the top of the screen. So we're sort of looking, are we going to get one of these on Bitcoin? That's, I guess, is the question for everybody at the moment.
Yep.
You've quite rightly highlighted the volumes down. Now, obviously, you can also say China's out now. So whether that's playing a part on the different volume, I don't know. But obviously, there was a lot of money from over here in the market. A lot of it's not in the market now.
That's a good observation. So the market, yeah, exactly. So I do think the reason the what I would call the absolute change in volume. So like if you compare coins exchanged this time last year versus this time this year, there's two factors. One, there's a big segment of one of the biggest buyers in the market, China. They're pretty much out. Most people in China are out. And then two, it's coins are a lot more expensive per coin, so you're going to see less coins exchanged. So I'm not necessarily concerned with the absolute delta, the fact that we're trading a third or a fifth of the coins per day that we used to trade this same time last year. It's the relative trend. The relative trend being from, say, the summer lull, which we have almost every year in Bitcoin, with the exception of a few bear market years, it's up in the summer. But for the most part, just like a lot of equities and a lot of other things, it has a bit of a lull in summer, and then it picks up steam in the fall. And that relative volume, so last year, the volume from July and August through November, December was increasing every month, almost weekly, and it was just constantly marching upward till we got a crescendo of volume in early January, and then it died off. This year, the pattern is different in that we had more volume back in September, and the volume has been declining relative to the same price action. So last year we had increasing volume, but also increasing price. So the argument that, well, the coins are more expensive, so there should be less coins being exchanged, would have applied to last year, but we kept seeing increasing volume while the price kept increasing, which means that there was almost an exponential ramp up of actual trading volume in US dollars because there were more coins being exchanged and at a higher price. And that trend maintained pretty much through early last year. Again, the trend is different this year. We had a lot more volume in September and a lot smaller price appreciation compared to last year as well. We had a lot higher volume in September. It came down in October, and so far in November, it's been pretty far down. That's really the trend that I'm watching. Is the
there is an argument, I think, that the volume will come when this breaks out. We will have to see. We're still consolidating here, but
right.
Let's see. I mean, we haven't. I mean, we've had these sell-offs where we've had the big volume here. I mean, obviously, this is just looking at Kraken's volume, but yeah, I mean, Kraken's volume is down.
Yeah, so if you look at volume from October through November, before we broke out and we were actually consolidating, the volume was ramping in Bitcoin last year as price was consolidating. Whereas, and so and we got more trading volume after it broke the all-time high, a lot more trading volume, and that was a good indicator that, hey, this was a good breakout, right? Volume isn't the end all be all by any means. It's just it's one of many potential indicators. And last year the volume profile was very healthy. So I'm looking at the charts right now. Yeah. So September and October, I guess it did kind of break out a little bit. It broke back above 12K. That run from 12K up to 19K was increasing in volume as it went, but it also was increasing in volume. That little pop to even earlier than that. So in August, I'm trying to.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
Anyway, I mean, everybody gets the point. The point is that volume was increasing, and it really ramped up after we broke the all-time high. It really, really ramped up. What we've seen this year is we've had 2 all-time high breaks, and volume has actually decreased at both times. We had a little bit of volume coming into that, and as soon as we broke the all-time high, the volume actually went to sell pressure volume, but then the buying volume decreased. So that's a bit of a red flag.
It sort of came up here on low volume. It's
very low volume, right? Yeah, exactly.
Sort of curious, yeah. So I've seen in the meantime, whilst Bitcoin's been fighting away here, obviously we have seen Ethereum's weekly, I think, looks a little bit better. I mean, it has continued upwards week on week. Obviously, so we've got one nothing week, but 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 now. Still steady. There's nothing explosive here. Obviously, all these gains are good if they're compounding. If you're in early in the market, then all these little 3, 4, 5% is great because it's multiplied enormously. But yeah, I mean, we've continued steadily up here, but I think obviously there's still thoughts with all the things going on with Ethereum that this price action it's maybe undervalued, still very steady at the moment. Obviously, we're catching a bid today relative to Bitcoin as we speak. Obviously, we're 2% up now on the day. So we've got another bounce off 0.07 on the ratio. So yeah, I mean, it's this is an amazing uptrend. If this was a heavyweight equity or something, it would be doing very well. I guess we're all a bit impatient in crypto because we keep seeing things pumping 3,000% in 2 days and think, why can't ETH do that? But I guess we've got futures markets now. We've got a lot of institutional players. We've got hedge funds. There's a lot more going on in this market than there was 4 years ago, is my view at the moment. But we will see. I wouldn't write off anybody's case at the moment. we've got the CTM case with the end of year. But if you look at, say, Nick Merton's case, Data Dash, huge following, much more a proponent of much longer lengthening cycle and be patient. And I wouldn't like to say who's right or wrong, but you know, it's good when we're talking to see these numbers going up, Brandon.
Not crashing.
We were a bit late starting, and the market was selling off. I thought, there we go, we've caught it today. I thought we'd started selling, and we hadn't even made it. So, but we're seeing a little bit of bid there, 2.5% on ETH.
Yeah.
So.
Who knows what's going to happen from here? I mean, we could have definitely we washed out leverage, so it's pretty much a healthy reset. So if we get any sort of good news, like I know Van Eck is supposed to be filing for their ETF today, or there's a decision on that, something like that, approval on that would absolutely send it. Because now we've got that, the liquidation levels are all reset, and that would bring some serious volume to the table. But my expectation is that sans any news, without any news, I felt like we would grind higher through today up to about 67,000, and then have another maybe low liquidity sell off over the weekend, Sunday night, and then really make a bigger move next week. That's my guess right now. The problem is I don't trust pumps coming into the weekend. So if we do kind of pump today or tomorrow, we'll see what the weekend brings at that point. But
weekend brought no volume at all recently.
Exactly, and that's when it's ripe for. If we do get a big pump today and tomorrow, my fear would be that I shouldn't say fear, but my expectation would be that there'd be a lot of fresh leverage that would yet again get flushed out in that low volume weekend. But price would probably come in Monday about the same price we left Friday, right? That's just the way it ends up. But you get these big moves on the low liquidity.
Everything straight away, or even before that, as sort of Australia. So so ETH Bitcoin's still in this range we've been watching. It was obviously this candle's now looking like it may reverse to a bullish candle this week. Still consolidating here. Still like the look of that as a big ETH hodler. Big relative to my portfolio, I have to say, tiny ETH hodler compared to some of the people out there. But big allocation in ETH. Chart looks good, so wait and see.
It's going to be really interesting to see if we break to the upside of this consolidation here on Ethereum, which would another small thing is if you look at Bitcoin dominance and the relationship between Bitcoin and altcoins, and namely Ethereum, we are off script this cycle now. Ever since we had this big sell-off and prolonged low, I think from pretty much the whole month of September and October is where I realized, we're completely off script. That low in Bitcoin dominance is abnormal of 2017. We didn't have any altcoins, anything before 2017, but it didn't fit the profile of 2017 as closely as I kind of thought it would. And if you look, if you go to your left,
if I'm looking at this, Brandon, I see this coming up here. We've got this. Are we going to make a
lower?
Shoulder and then boom and then boom.
Are we gonna? It's in a downtrend. That's exactly right. And so, the 2017 pattern was a couple of quick kind of bottoms. One quick bottom, a big bounce, a second higher low on the Bitcoin dominance, and then a real strong bounce. This cycle has shown a little bit of a different pattern. Same general thing, right? Initial altcoin season one, more or less, but Bitcoin bounced back pretty fast. And it was a much quicker reaction. This time, Bitcoin's languishing down here a little bit longer. And we'll see if we get that bounce back that you saw that W kind of on the left side there. We'll see if we get a pseudo, pattern back to the upside of these upward part of the trend line.
Up here towards this area, that to me would look like if it rejects off there, that's where you want to be in something else.
That's a big move versus Bitcoin. That'd be a huge move on Bitcoin. Either everything is selling off really, really bad if Bitcoin's making that move, or Bitcoin broke out pretty big. Exactly.
So we did a stream, and then it went all the way up here, and then boom. So obviously ETH dominance. So it's obviously looking at someone else's work here, but Crypto Wolf on Twitter just whilst we're talking about this, obviously he's got this ETH dominance chart. He's looking at this ascending triangle coming in here, saying, this might just send to 30% here. So this guy's got some pretty good TA, so just keep an eye on it. So that's why I haven't got this dated back here actually for this ETH dominance, but this is an interesting sort of inverse head and shoulders again there.
I need to.
So if we do get an ETH, if ETH goes to 30% dominance, ETH is going to fly. I mean, that's what will happen there. So we'll see. So it's just a little tidbit I picked up today on Twitter. I was just thought it was nice looking, some nice TA, nice looking chart. Got the obviously all this head and shoulders, inverse head and shoulders, and then an ascending triangle. So I mean, this is coin market cap Ethereum dominance with colons between. I couldn't get that to come up on my trading view, but maybe I don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, I mean, obviously for me, I'm bullish Ethereum. So if we flip back, just look at ETH stats. Obviously, since we last spoke, I mean, the fee burn's just been incredible. We're up 850,000. It's not going to be too long at this rate before we get to 1% of all of the Ethereum that's ever been issued now being burned. If we look at the last week, we're up to 8.5, or well above the rate we've had kind of as our average to date. And we can see this last week that Uniswap's been top of the burn leaderboard now. So we've got a lot of trading going on the layer one. OpenSea's lost its position here as the NFTs have cooled a bit. We've had the ENS airdrop this week for anyone who's got an ETH .eth domain. So thankfully that included me. So it's been a very nice airdrop, and see, we can talk about that maybe another time. But there are ways you can start farming these airdrops, which is an interesting way to earn all of perhaps the things like layer twos that don't have tokens at the moment. You know, maybe use them all so that you're on the list if they wish to airdrop you some free money. But we've seen, we're just seeing huge demand on the layer one. Obviously, a lot of high gas, but huge demand on layer one, bringing this fee burn. I still don't think this is priced in, unless, you know, really long and the short of that. If we look at crypto fees, I mean, this gets ever more crazy. So 1 day fees now $78 million Ethereum versus $1 million for Bitcoin. So we're now sat at what, a 78x just about or something, on certainly well over 70x versus Bitcoin on fees. How much are people prepared to pay? So, you know, Uniswap, 14 million a day in fee revenue for that business. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that ratio just keeps getting bigger and bigger of Ethereum versus Bitcoin. That's sales if you're going to make that a company up. So it reminds me more of a Tesla chart. That does, the way that's going up. And then we've got obviously the layer two locked value. Obviously, we've seen Loopring's value go up, but that's because there's a lot of Loopring's own token in the platform. Obviously, that's pumped. That was one of the trades I got out of a little bit too early. Obviously, that's pumped right up to nearly $4. So got out of that one too early, but still a nice trade, but a bit more patience required for me there. But we're seeing, again, lots of locked value in these projects. This chart's sort of a little bit flat at the moment. But obviously, this is in dollars. So obviously, we're seeing the market pump as well, so it pushes these values out. And how much does it cost to use the layer two? Again, I've been using Loopring. I've been doing a little bit of trading. So if you do a swap here, Loopring costs you $1, fully secured by Ethereum. So that's a pretty pretty big difference to the $81. That's actually pretty cheap at the moment on layer one. So,
That is.
Yeah, fees are obviously quite low, right. Or when I refresh this earlier, I think we're up now 157 Gray, so it would be higher than that if I refresh it. But yeah, so just give me a second, Brandon. Sorry.
No problem. All right. Well, I guess I'll take over sharing with my. All right. I had some comments here while he's taking his break. Comments, people asking to look at Cadena and the same market cap as Eagle. Let's go take a quick look at that. That was one of the early comments we had here from Sergio. Let's take a look at that project. Cadena, I don't know what it is. Is Alan back already? Alan, I'm going to hand it back over to you as soon as I take a quick look at this.
Yeah, just go for it.
It's a scalable layer one proof of work blockchain. Let's see, where are we at on the market cap list? 48. Is it catching up pretty fast? Was this a renamed project? I'm trying to remember if this was the one that got renamed. Build the Future Cadena. This is kind of like a non-VC backed Solana, if I recall, after looking at it. That's like my initial impressions, kind of like a Solana. In the way that the POW side of it works, but it's not VC backed. That's really, or not as VC backed, I should say.
You read all this stuff, it's just cut and paste out of Ethereum. So yeah, we could set one of these up, Brandon. We could have been billionaires and just
man,
cut and paste the Ethereum white paper.
Just copy Ethereum, make the block size a little bigger, and have a small set of validators, and then name it after a large exchange that everybody knows, and all of a sudden it blows up to be huge.
These are the plan. You can put some validators in Texas. I'll put some in, not in China, but probably in Hong Kong or somewhere.
That would be good to avoid putting them in China. I would agree. Yeah, unless we get shut down.
Outside the states, but yeah, it'd be quite crazy, really, that's all you have to do. But that's, if you look at what BSC and these other things are, that's pretty much what they are.
Hey, so Sergio, I'll try to do some work on Cadena here and see. I've looked at it in the past. For some reason, I thought it was renamed, but I don't know. I think I've looked at it in the past, but I'll double check that, and I'll give you a better assessment maybe on a future one. I've got. I put out a thread. I'll just tell you guys on Twitter. I put out a thread saying, "Hey, tell me your like undervalued or small project." I forget what I said. Just what do you think the most undervalued crypto or whatever? And I got a lot of really good responses. People were really, really excited to respond to that. And I did a lot of research on a lot of them, and there's some really interesting ones in there. So I think the more interesting ones were like Multivac, MTV, LF0, which is kind of a DAG. And there was a third one. Maybe I'll add Cadena. This looks interesting to look at.
You do the measure that you're a little bit cynical and just do the simple measure. Which one's got all the hype? Which one's all over Twitter? Which one's all over YouTube videos and looks a bit undervalued? And then buy a lot of that. The way this market is probably going to pump. I mean, it's just crazy. And
so, yeah, I mean,
some of these L1s, they don't really do anything in comparison to, certainly not to Ethereum's level of usage. And yet we're seeing thousands and thousands of percent. And all I say to anyone is, don't stick your life savings in these things, because there's a good chance someone's going to unload on you at some point. Someone's got millions and millions and millions of the tokens. So just risk manage all your trades on these things. They're ultra speculative. When you get almost out the top 10 or the top 20 in crypto, you're into penny stocks. Basically, it's a wild west. You just be careful with your money, because I'm seeing Twitter full of people getting wrecked at the moment. They've aped into SHIB and it dumps 50%, and it's just like, oh goodness,
SHIB's kind of come back down here a little bit. So yes, and I will tell you, like, I had a little bit of Elrond, like from a year ago, because I liked it, good layer one. But all of a sudden I saw all this just fervor and hype on Twitter, and I'm like, man, people are really excited about this project. So I went and did some more research on it, and I found that some of the concerns that I had about it were not really well founded, that they had put more thought into some of the areas that I was concerned about. And having it, the protocol having been live for a year without any downtime, I was like, okay, well, it's probably not, my concerns are probably not that big of a deal. So I started ramping up. But I mean, the honest truth is the community behind it is a huge part of it. And so this is why a year ago, this is why I pegged Cardano as what would be one of the big winners of this bull market. And of course, it had zero. It just rolled out smart contracts, and look what happened when they did. Now it's really slow going, predictably, getting projects live. But when you're looking at speculative investments in crypto, you've got to look at the hype.
That trade, I took that trade and took the profit out into Ethereum. Happy days, it's like didn't get the top, but doesn't matter.
You got you got good gains on it. And it's really, you look at, it's a really good gauge. Crypto Twitter is a really good gauge. When people are getting really excited and you get like a lot of comments about, and especially when people, if you say, if you make a comment on something and people just come out defending it, like really ardently, like they did Elron, well, that tells me there's a lot of people behind it. Now, Elron doesn't have the venture capital, backing that like Solana does and all the marketing that goes with that. But this is the same reason I picked Cardano last year. Huge community, a lot of development activity, not live, but that means there's a lot of speculation and hype, and so it's probably going to pump big when the rest of crypto is pumping. And sure enough, it did. And then, of course, predictably, when smart contracts were launched, it had a big lull, and it's been very predictable. And so, but yeah, this is a good gauge. If you see a lot of people talking about a project on Twitter, and it's not really picked up, got to do your own research there. But if it looks like a solid,
trade it with your speculative trade capital. Just don't I'll sell on my Bitcoin and buy XYZ random thing in the position 74 in the crypto list because it's bound to go up 10,000%. It's nice. Just don't do that, please.
Yeah, just put a small. Yes, exactly. That's a very good observation there as well. Like, my position on any of these is not really any larger than 10, maybe 20% at most, and that's if it grows into that. But anyway, that's just a side point. But that's a good gauge, and this is in this game what we're playing, and we should comment on the fact that it does appear now the market may be just fooling us, and Bitcoin may make a big run. So I'm gonna coach what I'm about to say with that statement. It could still absolutely make a parabolic run at the end of the year. I'm not saying it's not going to. But the probabilities, the game of trading and investing is all about evaluating the probabilities and then adjusting according to probabilities. The probability that Bitcoin breaks out and makes a huge run to $500,000 peak to end this year is decreasing day by day by day. The behavior is changing. One of the other things that's changing about the behavior, we see these false breakouts and sell-offs in Bitcoin. That's a technical thing, right? The other thing that's changing is it's clear that there's more interest in the rest of the crypto space, and especially smart contract platforms and NFTs and the metaverse and so forth and so on. So there's a lot of attention from speculation being drawn away from Bitcoin. Bitcoin's no longer a super speculative play. So, what we're waiting for right now is for Bitcoin to reach kind of mass adoption as a hedge against inflation and seen as a realistic investment for larger players. But the speculation is all going into smaller. So that's another difference this cycle. And it's not that this cycle is different. It's not different this time. This is an adaptation we have to make. The market is ever changing, and it may look similar to markets in the past. There's a lot of lessons we can learn, but it continues to educate us every day, and we have to evaluate the market every day to see what's evolving with the market and adjust our analysis according to what's happening. And so one of the things that's happening, to your point, is that interest in smaller plays. I guess you have.
Yeah. So obviously we talked about it was sort of working through the Ethereum fees, adoption levels, all these things. So obviously you touched on is this cycle different? And what we will see, and obviously whether we look at dominance or we just look at the price, is this market has still been fueled by Bitcoin's halving. That's been its driver. Obviously, Bitcoin dominance earlier in this bull market was still very high. It's only over 50%, which means you've got everything trading against Bitcoin. Obviously, what we're going to see next year is what happens when Ethereum goes through the merge. What happens when there's a huge supply reduction in Ethereum as number two. Where will Ethereum be relative to Bitcoin at that point? And where will it get after that? Because you've got then a supply, sort of the supply on Ethereum, and then potentially Ethereum's market cycle is different, and what's going to play out. I'm not saying the super cycle theory plays out, but it could be that everything being pegged to Bitcoin cycle starts to break. And that's really what I'm interested in seeing. Not, maybe that's beyond the end of this bull market, who knows, by the time that's all done. But I'm very curious to that, because this really has been the whole, everything that became clear last year about Bitcoin's going to go through a halving, it's going to break out. We're going to see it run to the top and then back down. We all come in the bear market. Are we going to see that break? I think Ethereum's got the chance to break that, if anything's going to break it right now, because we're seeing this massive change in issuance. And we're going to see a supply shock that's way bigger than the Bitcoin halving next year. We've actually already seen about a 50% drop now, with so much burn going on EIP 1559. So, and obviously all of the scaling, which obviously what I was going to touch on a little bit today.
Yeah.
Obviously fees remain the big topic for people. I've made some trades on layer one this past week. One of them I think was $180 to make a smart contract call on layer one. You think, goodness me, but it needs to be a big enough transaction to be worthwhile. So big piece of news I've picked up in the last 24 hours here is and this is like, finally we are seeing a direct fiat on ramp to layer two coming, which is through one of the ZK rollouts. In this case, we've got OKEX and ZK Sync. So this will allow direct withdrawal to layer two. Once you're in layer two on ZK Sync, you can then transfer layer two to layer two gas free. This was the news that's required for layer two adoption to explode to the next level. And I think once one of the exchanges, big ones, is offering it like this, we're going to see the others come as well. And we're seeing the protocols such as HOP and others that allow you to get between the layer twos maturing. So I think this is going to make a huge difference to Ethereum. I can't overstate how big this is, and this just brings users straight into layer two. There's no need to go through layer one, and we're now seeing most of the major protocols on or about to be on the major layer two networks. So if I was looking at Signal, in all of the tweets and stuff I see, this one jumped out, I think it's yesterday or today, and it was yesterday. So say goodbye to gas fees, hello to UX. So I think we're going to see a whole load of these announcements coming shortly, where the major exchanges support direct to layer two. Then things like smart contract wallets, so many other things will all be executing on layer two with nominal gas. And the thing is, this layer two system with ZK Sync, that you've also obviously got Arbitrum with lots of major projects there, Optimism, which is not a full ZK rollup, but obviously a different solution. We're starting to see things like, we've got Plasma, we've got a layer two to suit your application, which is a big deal for Ethereum. It's not all going in the layer one and you have to dev for 20 years and hope something comes out the end. This is the community's building out all of this technology in parallel. This is so big for Ethereum, and I just don't think we got 2% move today. I just still don't think this is priced properly now. I just think we're out of alignment on price based on the fundamentals, and so my profits, things I've been working on this week, are now I'm just trying to stack ETH, because I'm going to stick my portfolio where my mouth is when it comes to this stuff. I can see what's coming. So
And I will share that I'm really close to. I'm waiting. I'm patient, trying to be patient and waiting for the right time. Of I do think Bitcoin at some point will make a little bit more of a move, but I am getting really close to being ready to rotate a large portion. I'm almost 80% Bitcoin. And in the next coming few weeks, depending on if we do get a breakout to the upside on Bitcoin and a big move that a lot of people are expecting, now I don't think it's going to be nearly as big as some people hope for. But if we do get a big move and a big bounce in the Bitcoin dominance chart, that'll be my opportunity to rotate to down to about 50% Bitcoin. And Ethereum is going to be a big part of that. And something else I want to highlight, Bitcoin's at $1.2 trillion market cap. Ethereum currently is at $560 billion market cap. Just think about this. Last year, this time, Bitcoin's market cap, it was maybe approaching 300 billion or 400 billion. I can't remember what it was. Ethereum's market cap now is significantly larger than Bitcoin's market cap has been for all but the past year. So think about it that way. And so there's a lot of dynamics that change there, right? The combined market cap of the two of them is approaching 2 trillion. And so that's going to change a lot of things about the dynamics of this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I won't get too much into the technicals today, but this particular, Linear account is particularly good for things around Ethereum. You can find that on Twitter and here on Medium. This is an interesting piece for those that are, you could find this pretty quickly with a Google search. It talks about the roll-ups and data shards throughput, and why this is, in the opinion here, the sustainable solution for high scalability, which is obviously the things we've touched on before here, Brandon, but is maximizing decentralization and everyone being able to run a node and validators on the layer one. So don't compromise decentralization by trying to make your layer one really fast. You don't need gigabit wires and data centers to run a node. And then this is when you add in sharding after proof of stake, and each of these shards can be hosting a number of rollups, you just get this massive transaction throughput. So this is an interesting piece. I won't go through it all here, but it talks about some of the stats, some of the reasons why. So there's a lot of reading out there for those who are interested in what Ethereum is doing and why. This has perhaps been dubbed by some people named modular blockchain, which is to do with having all the different flavors of ZK rollups and other rollups available around on a sort of almost like a hub and spoke model, where the layer one's in the middle. You've then got all the glue around that, and then you've got all the spokes coming off it, which is all the scalability. And we now have protocols that are coming, which are going to bridge the liquidity as well across these sort of spokes, across all these roll-ups. So we don't get this fragmented liquidity problem over time. And that, again, is going to be huge. We've talked about it before. I get why people like Solana and these other things, but I just cannot, as a CTO/architect looking at that, cannot be a fan of that long term as the design that we're just going to make an ultra fat layer one. That for me just looks the wrong design. So I like what Ethereum is doing. Obviously everybody hopes things get done a little quicker, but you've got to do things in a sustainable way as well. I mean, Ethereum's got such massive usage. You've got to be careful. The merge is going to be the biggest change in Ethereum's history, next year. Yeah, I mean, so this is just this, whether it's Twitter or elsewhere, more great sources of information on Ethereum. What's it all about? So yeah, I mean, state bloat is listed here. Again, this is the problem of too many transactions on layer one, the current state.
Yeah, and that's a
whole
other topic. State bloat.
It was basically state bloat, and it just if you haven't got fees, you haven't got fee mechanisms, you can just be full of spam straight away. I mean, there's no disincentive to sending transactions and doing stuff on the network. You just get clogged up straight away as soon as anyone gets interested. We saw, we've seen that on some of the chains now. There's no disincentive to pumping just gazillions of transactions everywhere. There's no economic almost control there. And at any chain, once it fills up on the block space, you need a mechanism for dealing with the provision of that, for bidding for the block space. Otherwise, what are you going to get? A bigger and bigger queue? Who knows? It's just going to collapse. So a lot of the design decisions are very sensible. Obviously, what we're seeing now is almost like a real-time experiment, seeing all this play out. There's all these different flavors of ZK and other roll-ups live, but working very well. So yeah, I'm going to sound like the Ethereum bull, I always do, but I still think we're mispriced, and something's got to give sooner or later.
You were right about Tesla, so I would put the odds on you being right about Ethereum being undervalued pretty high.
Yeah,
I mean,
obviously, the only thing you can say is, obviously, if the bull market does come to an end at some point, nothing escapes for a while, and things get very horrible very quickly. So we just all have to be watching here. When do the metrics flip? When are we out of this bull market? But it could be a year now, it could be 2 months, could be 6 weeks, could be, nobody knows at the moment.
We're a little bit off script. So at this point there's no true gauge of exactly when it should come to a conclusion. There's a lot of good work, a lot of good estimates, but I would imagine that when it's all said and done, the market's going to teach us a few more things that we didn't know that we're going to have to adjust. And that's the reality is, whenever you try to make projections, you're going to be wrong. It's just a matter of, again, aligning your directional bets with probabilities and trying to stay on the right side of the probabilities. And that's all you can do. And then how things exactly unfold, continue to monitor and to learn and to adapt. That's the name of the game.
Yeah, indeed. I'm fairly neutral on all these models. I think there's some great dashboards and things out there. The CTM community's got them, other people have got them, but I'm fairly neutral myself, as I usually am with things. I'm not wanting to back everything into one position because we just don't know. I've learned enough this year. I mean, you look at, information could be right and see the crazy market action on Tesla that we've seen. I mean, Elon getting rid of some shares, but I mean, this looks like a Bitcoin chart, doesn't it? Really? I mean, it's
they are kind of a Bitcoin exposure, but yeah, and they have that exponential growth too going on. That's an exponential growth asset chart. That's what they all are.
You've got, obviously, I took some profit up in 1200 with my trading position with Tesla, and just wanted to see what happens now, but it's not come back far enough to be. I had a feeling it might hold 4 figures, and
you got that gap there. Odds. I mean, equities do like to fill gaps. So, but it doesn't have to. There's lots of gaps on Amazon's chart and so forth and so on. So who knows? We'll see if that gap gets filled or not. I do have to wrap up here, Alan. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to share before we wrap. Do you got some broad market stuff you want to share?
There's not been too much here. I mean, what we have seen this week, and again, we don't necessarily look at this too closely, but the dollar finally got out of this chopping around on this channel. So it's made a move upwards. So we'll see what happens now on this. I actually redrew this on a monthly, this DXY, just to have a closer look at where we are. So it looks like we've got this channel we've been in for, obviously, since the great financial sort of crash here. We've come back out, we've climbed back in now, so we've got this big trend line here, resistance up above. So I just think interesting times now for the DXY. What it perhaps is telling us is that however much money's being printed in the US, is the others like the euro and the pound are in even worse shape.
So, that's all that means. All the DXY means anymore is who's printing more. Is it the US or everybody else?
It's like everyone else is even worse at the moment. And yeah, I mean, UK's not in great shape economically, obviously my home country, and Yeah, we see the pound's been getting absolutely hammered. It's like yeah. We could say it broke out of this long thing. Is it coming back, just retesting? When we see it recover, but economic data is not good, so we'll see how that gets priced in. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, equity markets we've just seen up. I mean, we've had a little go at correcting a bit, but on the Nasdaq, but I mean, look at that on a monthly, it's up. Yeah. So what can you say? Still no sign of any serious correction. We'll just have to wait and see. Yeah.
Appreciate you sharing here, Alan. We do have to wrap up here. But thank you, and we'll get back to it next week. Michael asked about how the markets are doing in China. I think Michael, check Alan's Twitter feed. He posted yesterday that the they're still building, things are still going on. So I would imagine
Yeah.
Alan's answer is it's not as bad as the FUD would say.
Absolutely. I think we are going to see some sort of bottom needs to be found in real estate. But as I've said before, the government's cooling that deliberately here. So it's not this boom bust type of capitulation crash we see in, dare I say, in the West. When we've been back in the UK, we nearly always end up with a great big bubble and then a crash. We're seeing a controlled deleveraging, and that's a very different thing. I think there's 3 or 4 of the developers that are in a bit of trouble because they just can't raise any more money from the state banks because they got themselves in a mess. So now they're being deleveraged, and it's painful for them. So we may see them wobbling around a bit, but they're having to sell assets, and there's news every day that assets are being disposed of. So we will see. But no, I mean, China's numbers, FDI looks like it's going to break another record, be #1 this year. So I think for all the fun in the media, the world's voting with its wallet when it comes to where it's investing. So.
All right, I'm going to wrap up with our Doge wave. Thanks, everybody. Again, Banned by the River, not financial advice, just our observations. But you guys all take care, and we'll see you next week.
Next week.